before you are a group of Brass of Peace alumni. Brass of Peace is a youth organization that I have been a part of for 36 years. Thank you. I took the group over from the founder in 1990. Gil Mitchell founded it in 1977. And actually, we have a couple of alumni from his year as well, including our great soloist today. Brass of Peace is a scholarship ensemble for high schools who are looking to play at a very, very high level. And so the alumni members here are not necessarily all music majors. A lot of them have gone on to all sorts of wonderful careers other than music. But what I have found is that they have all been enormously successful in whatever fields they have chosen. You'll hear a little bit about which way they're going, but they've always kept music close to their heart. So I hope you enjoy this program. It is varied and wildly varied from all sorts of genres. And I would like to say that we are doing this concert in support of the Coalition for Livable Alexandria, of which I am on the board. And I'll have our board president talk to you a little, just briefly later about what it's all about and why we're supporting the Coalition for Livable Alexandria with this concert and your donations if you wish. So I hope you enjoyed. The first piece is called Balthazar. And it's a little bit in a tradition of a John Williams type of movie. You'll hear all this swashbuckling and, it's very masculine sounding. I mean, if I didn't tell you, you would say, oh, that's John Williams. But it's actually Anthony DiLorenzo, who is a really talented trumpet player and composer. So welcome to our Brass of Peace Alumni 2025 concert. love to do this next piece on a Brass and Peace program. So this is I Love You Porgy from George Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. And what makes this music so special is that in 1935, it's 90 years old, this piece now. In 1935, George Gershwin had the chutzpah to write an opera with an all African-American cast. Think about that. How controversial that would have been in 1935. And as you might imagine, it took a while for people to warm up to it. But it's such wonderful music that people did warm up to it and became one of our all-time favorites. So this is I Love You Porgy from Porgy and Bess. And it features several of our Brass and Peace alumni. It features Rex Richardson, and it also features Haley East Jackson. Okay, enjoy. I Love You Porgy. Gershwin tune, Someone to Watch Over Me. It's one of my favorite tunes of all time. And it turns out that it has special significance for one of our members. So about, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, there was a group that got together to play for the wedding of Kaylee Niece Jackson. And this was one of her requested tunes, Someone to Watch Over Me. So I thought it would be a really nice thing, other than the fact it's one of my favorite tunes, to be able to feature her and also Rex in this beautiful, beautiful arrangement. So, Someone to Watch Over Me by George Gershwin. we have something special for you now. So, I would say one of the great movies of all time that I don't know too many people who don't love this movie and don't watch it over and over the course of their lifetime. But this is a classic film, The Sound of Music. And of course, in this part of where this shows up, you know, Captain Van Trapp he's looking so longingly back to the Austria that he once knew. He knows where it's headed, and it's not good. And so he's longing for that Austria that he had. So this is going to be a sing-along of Edelweiss. So you can join in if you'd like to. You don't have to sing. You can enjoy everybody else's singing. We're going to ask my friend Philip Krizwicki to come up and encourage you to sing with us. So it's got a 4-bar introduction.
This looks like a friendly side. I'll stay here. You can take that side.
Yeah, that's a friendly side too, so I'll take that side. So the next work is also a Tony DiLorenzo special. His music is very much of the John Williams ilk. This is called Toymaker, and it's from a large work called The Golden Palace. And you can almost hear, you know, little elves banging on toys in the beginning of this work. But it's, once again, very swashbuckling, really very brassy, and I hope you enjoy it. This is the Toymaker from The Golden Palace of Anthony DiLorenzo. section to find out who's actually here. So in the back here, we have Taylor Bonalongino, who just finished her first year at the University of Miami. Also in the center, we have Christian Leon, who just finished his first year at Rice. Second year at Rice University. Second year at Rice. There you go. And then here we have my Marine, Joseph Cradler, the member of the United States Marine President's Own. We'll meet the other members a little later. So imagine, if you would, you've taken an exotic trip to Buenos Aires, and you've decided to go out and hear a little music at night, so you find a little bar and it's very, very smoky. And the music plays, and all of a sudden a couple comes out into the middle of the dance floor. She's just this beautiful dress with her hair slicked back and a feather, and the man has a blousey shirt on, and they do the tango. So let's put ourselves in that wonderful atmosphere as we play Tango by Isaac Albeniz. This is Tango in D. Not to be confused with those other tangos. to see all my old friends, and I get to see their parents too, which makes me even happier. So I thank you all for being here, and I thank those of you in the community who came to support us in this concert. It would have been nice if we were outdoors. I realize it would have been really fun. Oh well, the weather didn't want to cooperate with us. Uh-oh, they're leaving already. So the next work, who has ever heard music of Anton Bruckner? Anybody ever heard Anton Bruckner? Yeah, you know, he's not really on like most people's hit parade when it comes to classical music, but Bruckner was a late romantic composer. He's, lived in the time of Wagner and Brahms and Strauss. And the only thing that was more important to Bruckner than music was God and the church. So if one were to close their eyes, if one knew Bruckner and the sound of Bruckner, one would say, this is a piece by Anton Bruckner, but it's not. It's actually a piece by Enrico Crespo, and he's a trombonist who was born in 1941. He's a classical and jazz trombonist, and he made this wonderful piece as an homage to Anton Bruckner, and he chose the right instruments to do it with. So this is called Bruckner Etude. getting us back to our classical roots. Ah, thank you. Probably okay. So the members of the trombone section that you just heard, Hunter Bingham. Alumni of my era. Barry was in brass piece from 1991 to 1994. And, you know, I always knew Barry had talents a la galore. I knew whatever Barry decided he was going to do for a living, he was going to be phenomenal at it, and certainly he is. So Barry is a cybersecurity expert, but he also plays a gobload of instruments, brass instruments, and period instruments really quite well. So he's becoming quite sought after as a period instruments are instruments that are made for like the Baroque and classical era. So they don't look like these. They look, you know, they're like made out of wood, or they're curly, and they're really interesting instruments. He plays quite a few of them. So Barry, thank you. Eugene Song. Eugene is a lieutenant junior grade in the United States Coast Guard. So Liam is he's a systems engineer, and he has his own business, Barron Systems. This is Liam Barron. Justin Smith on bass trombone. He's just got some real trombone groupies here today, I'm telling you. Justin has just finished his second year. He's a marketing major at UVA. So this is actually a wonderful opportunity for me to introduce perhaps, and I should talk, but Rex is so old that he's from Bill Mitchell's time. So Rex was one of a phenomenal high school trumpet section in 1987. And then Rex went on to, do I remember correctly, you went on to study anthropology as well as the trumpet at Northwestern? Do I remember that correctly too?
Just anthropology.
Anthropology. And then somehow Rex has had this incredible career. He's a globetrotter. We don't see him as much as anymore because where in the world is Rex Richardson? He could be in Singapore, he could be in San Diego, he could be in Iceland, he could be in Germany, he could be in France. Just look at his Facebook page and you'll see him, a picture of him on an airplane. And that's kind of where we'll see him. But Rex actually has, not only is he going to be soloing in this next piece, but he's also among many other things, he's also the professor of trumpet at the University of South Carolina at Columbia, South Carolina. And he just recently released an album in February called Elegy. So, may I introduce Rex Richardson. Thank you. This piece is by Piazzolla and it's called Oblivion. trombone player. Okay, so anyway, we have back the gentleman who's trying to slide his way right back into the trombone section. That's Lucas Orozco, who is just graduated from Brass and Peace and will be headed to Northwestern University. Somebody's got to keep me in line. Yeah. So this piece, this is just one of those big old Straussian fanfares. It's called the Vienna Philharmonic Fanfare. The nice thing about getting to choose a program is that I get to choose all my favorite pieces. And this next one is no exception. Even as a child, this was my favorite piece of the Bossa Nova style. So this is, it was written by Johnny Mandel and Webster. And this is arranged by Brass Quintet, but it's the shadow of your smile. And so we're going to add a little extra spice to it by having some percussion instruments. So who's got everybody have everything they're going to, I'm going to ask you to stand. And this will feature several people in our ensemble. It'll feature Henry Price and Hunter Bingham on trombone. It will also feature Kaylee Neese Jackson and Rex Richardson on trumpet, and also, McCager Byrne is going to be playing a little, some solos too. So.
All right.
come up and just say a few words. Thank you, Roy. Thanks for showing up and supporting us, and we're supporting you. You're supporting us.
Well, first of all, let's hear it for these great musicians. What Sylvia is doing and what Brass of Peace is doing is phenomenal. I mean, it keeps the music alive, it keeps it going, and that's really important, particularly after COVID. Musicians were really suffering, live music was really suffering, and these are phenomenally talented folks up here. And not just, obviously, Rex Richardson. If you're into jazz and you see the folks that he's played with, he is a heavyweight. And you're really privileged to be able to hear him. But all these musicians up here are just fantastic. They don't get to be up here unless they're ready to get to that next level. And Sylvia helps them get there. So again, I'm going to keep my remarks really short because we want to hear them and not me. We have a donation box here. I want you to imagine living in a community where family was not an entity. A community where you had no rights. If somebody moved next to you and wanted to turn that house, that condo, that townhouse into a boarding house, there would be nothing you could do about it. And there would be no regulations with regard to boarding houses or rooming houses. Imagine living in a community where, because there is no family, you could have, in a 4-bedroom dwelling, you could have 8 unrelated individuals living there with 8 cars and no requirement for any parking. Imagine that. And imagine living in a community where if a developer bought a property next to you and decided they wanted to turn that into a 4-plex or a 6-plex, there isn't anything you could do about it. You have no say. They have, by right, authority to build whatever they want to build in whatever condition they want to, as long as it fits the other codes of the city. That is where we are today. Now you might say, well, none of that has happened. None of that has happened because some of your neighbors, along with the help of the coalition, filed a lawsuit when these 2 ordinances, Ordinance 5514 and 5555, came into being in December of 2023. And the only reason that these things aren't happening is because the threat of the lawsuit is making it very difficult right now to finance any of these types of projects. But the lawsuit is the only thing we have left. City Council is not on your side here. They are supporting these ordinances that take away your rights. All we're asking for is to reinstate the zoning protections we had before, to give you the right to say what happens next door, to give you the right to go to City Council and petition City Council, to give you the right to also go to court. If this lawsuit fails, then you have no rights, you have no recourse. You won't even be allowed to file a lawsuit. So lawsuits are expensive. The city has hired one of the most expensive law firms in the nation to defend the city's position. We think we're in a very strong position, but we need help. They're expensive, and we're trying to help the plaintiffs so that they don't have to spend one dime, because what they're doing will benefit all of Alexandria. So I've talked too much. Let's get back to the music. And thank you all for being here and supporting me.
I've been a resident of Alexandria for almost 40 years, and I've lived in the same house for almost 40 years. And I think to take neighbor out of a neighborhood doesn't feel good to me. And so I've joined this board and given mightily to this organization because I would like Alexandria to remain a livable place, some place where kids have grass and trees, where they have big yards to play in. not, you know, next to a big fourplex where there's no yard and no trees. So, and lots of traffic, and even worse, schools. So this is why I'm part of this lawsuit. And so anything you can do to help we'd be grateful. It turns out that QR code also goes right to a donation page. So if you feel like donating that way or just this way, that would be great. You don't have to donate at all. Just to be here to support us and enjoy the music is plenty. So thank you again for coming, and Roy, thank you for telling us a little bit about what's going on. So the next work is a Stephen Sondheim work. So this is now, we're talking musicals and one of the greatest musical composers of all time. And so this is a work that features Kayleen East Jackson on the flugelhorn. So Kayleen, want you to come out? Oh yes, that's right. Jesse, oh, you know, I've got to get around to introducing the trumpet section too. Hold on. Let's see if I can find all that. I just lost it. Yes. Okay. So we're going to introduce our trumpet section before I forget. This would be classic Alimena. So here on the left we have Nix Hendry. Nix, stand up. So Nix just finished her junior year in high school, but is about to go to Interlochen Academy to finish her senior year in high school. So this is has just graduated from Yorktown High School. Did I get that? No. Colgan. So that was Yorktown. Colgan High School. And he is about to attend Vanderbilt University. So Jesse is the only guest this evening. Jesse and Kaylee, both Jesse Saldana, close. Jesse and Kaylee Niece Jackson both play in the United States Navy Band Brass Quintet. So RJ Doro. RJ is actually in high finance with Capital One Bank. So right there. And Rex we've already met. Rex is the great Rex Richardson. Thank you, Rex, again for being here. Okay, send him the phone. Sorry. Unfocused. All right, here we go. Kids, come on here. And so Jesse, okay, come on. Grace. And Amazing Grace, while it's a church hymn and a gospel hymn and a call to action, a source of inspiration for many, the original 1773 version didn't quite start out that way. It was basically an old British tune, and basically John Newton took the old tune and said these wonderful words, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Amazing Grace, thank you all so much for coming. Was there anybody I didn't introduce yet? Oh, thank God. Thank you for coming today, and thank you to Brass and Peas, Alumni,